At Dot & Company, we believe that all agencies deserve amazing account managers and that all of those account managers deserve to be supported, encouraged, and loved on. That's why we started CAM Community, a membership only for account managers. And inside, you'll gain access to the exact training we use to train our own client facing account managers, but also access to all of our SOPs, processes, and live trainings on a variety of topics. If you're an account manager, this is the place you've been waiting for. Learn more at dotandcompany.co/CAM community.
I'm so excited to be chatting today on the Happy Clients podcast about forward thinking with Linnea and how it applies to the account management roles. So Linnea has so many tricks and tips up her sleeve, and she's going to share them with us today, but how we can take the account management from good to great by really thinking forward and making sure we go the extra mile. So let's dive in with Linnea.
Welcome to the Happy Clients podcast, brought to you by Dot & Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to Happy Clients.
Hey, Linnea. So excited to be chatting today. I know you're a really awesome account manager. You have all of the tips and tricks, but you've also been doing this for a minute too. So you've been working with different agencies, working in the industry. So I know forward thinking is part of not only your daily sort of mantra, your mindset, but you are kind of constantly thinking about the client, the agency, and how to propel them forward. So let's dive in, talk about everything forward thinking. And why don't we just start there? Like, how do you make the forward thinking applicable to the agencies you're working with so everybody kind of has a really awesome, maybe easier day, but maybe even just a more fluid day, a more expected day? They know where things are, they know what's happening. How do you accomplish that, Linnea?
Ooh, great question. I'm so happy to be here as well. So the one thing that is super important is always observing and listening. So, a common thing with the CAM role is taking inventory on what questions are always being asked or what team members are pinging you for, or materials that you might need on, a moment's notice, and kind of planning that out so you have kind of like a toolbox of things that you could just send somebody at once and everything is there, right? That's how I like to think about it. How can you make your life easier? And in return, you're making the client's life easier, the agency owner's life easier, and also the team. So a lot of times there are, concerns that come from the clients that come through on a meeting or maybe on a deliverable that, is really important to them. So always hearing those types of concerns and relating it to the team and getting insight and responses to bring forward to the client. That's another big thing as well, is just always listening to the client and kind of getting what's underneath that concern. One of the things that I like to do is, if I can answer the question for that client and satisfy their concern, I will do it right away. If not, I'll look to my team, who are also experts, and I will say, hey, this is something that came up. What do you think? I'll give a collective answer and we can discuss it again on, the next meeting, or we could schedule a call. So kind of always thinking to combat that concern or satisfy a concern before the client has to bring it up again, because we don't ever want to see that concern resurface again. So kind of
100%. I loved your word, Linnea, of observing. Like, you're seeing trends, working in different accounts, working with different agencies, you're seeing trends that are happening in client communications, in client sort of even like an expectation or what they might need or how to make it easier. So that's such a great point, such a great takeaway here, to observe and then respond, be ahead of it, be proactive. I think that's a huge point here when we're talking about forward thinking, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that observation can also turn into processes, right? So observing the questions that are asked on a regular basis, whether it's from the team side or the client side, right? So that's one of the first things I look for is, okay, in the onboarding process with a client, what are the questions that are usually asked, right? Are frequently asked questions. observe those and create a guide or create a tutorial and ask the team members for help. Like, hey, I want a video or a screen share of how to get access, for a certain, I don't know, platform from the client. Let's make that super easy. And then we can rinse and repeat. Same thing with like getting creative and copy from, the client. We always need that. So creating a guide and being like, if you ever need to create, graphics for us, this is all the sizes, all the requirements, everything you need all at once. So we don't have to do one-off emails. And then the client, it feels empowered. And they also have the resource at their fingertips instead of wasting time coming to ask us and vice versa.
Now, I love that you're documenting things. I love that you have the templates, you have the guidelines. How are you getting the clients to kind of refer back or don't forget about this? What's that sort of, secret sauce in terms of communication? Because I think what a really great account manager will do is set everybody up for success. Of course, this is what we're talking about, the forward thinking, but how do we sort of make sure that clients are on board and they're, really realizing all of the work that's going into this and how easy we are making it for them?
Yeah, that's a great point. So not only do we kind of introduce it, walk them through everything, at the top when they're getting onboarded so that they kind of know everything. We make it super easy for them with, an email with all of the things we walked through, links directly to any of those resources. And then what I like to do is create a folder in the Google Drive that is shared with the team and the client. So anything that we ever provide or create for them and we walk through with them, we create it for them. So it's client facing, it's not just internal. And then I share that link with the client and kind of give them an intro of this, save this, bookmark it, save the link somewhere where it is, and use it as your home base. And the other thing is with meetings, if a document is mentioned or if there's a new deliverable that we're presenting, I create a resources tab within my recap. So I'm saying, here's all the resources that we walked through, and I link directly to it and remind them that it's in their folder for them to access at any point.
I love that. And I think we're seeing different sort of different levels of clients, right? There's some that get it, that are, this is a great process. I understand it. I'm going to go for it. There's other clients that are new to the scene, right? They don't know much about digital marketing. Maybe this is their first marketing endeavor. So even having that available to them, this is how it should go. This is the premium quality that you should expect while working with digital marketing agencies. I think that's just such a great expectation to set up for them. So I think you're really good, Linnea, about documenting everything, letting the client sort of understand this is how it's going to go. This is what we need from you, and making it super easy. So forward thinking in terms of expecting what the client will say, right? We're ahead of what the client will do, what their thought process. We know what the client will think and when they're going to think it. That's such a great place to be in tune. But there's other areas of agency life that I think are important when we're talking about forward thinking. There is time off. We get that sort of all the time. Different bandwidth. We certainly don't want burnout, but let's kind of tackle those sort of, I guess, maybe HR type things when there's time away, when there's, clients involved and you're the client facing person. How do you kind of tackle that and think forward to make sure everything's kind of covered and on track, stays on track even?
Yeah, love that. So every agency is different. So the agency that I worked with and also client agencies are different. So some teams are all full-time. I have the unique experience of working with an agency that has a lot of contractors and people who do other things as well. So I have kind of downloaded their schedules, got to know their types of patterns of when their availability is, and what type of bandwidth they actually have, so that myself and the agency owner can allocate clients and responsibilities, clearly, and making sure people aren't burnt out, because that's a big thing. And when it comes to scheduling and taking time off, one of the things that I was seeing was people were not necessarily preparing me to take on meetings and providing updates to the client. And so this was a gap that I identified, and I needed to come up with some sort of plan that required giving notice of time off when it comes to the team members, and also preparing a process that requires notice internal meetings so that I'm prepared and the rest of the team is prepared, and who's covering what. So getting the materials from, the client can, if somebody's off, is just the worst thing. And if you don't have an answer for the client, you never want to be put in that place. So I created basically like a jot form or a type form that the team member can do on their own. They're saying, hey, I'm going to be out this week. Here's all of the things that I've completed. Here's what is still in progress. And here's what you need to update the client, so that I can kind of take that and update the client as is, and give any questions or ask any questions to the team member that I am kind of thinking that the client might ask or anticipating, and have that in my toolbox to then bring to the meeting without having to feel like I don't have support from the team member that's out.
Yeah. And for you to just kind of business as usual, right? You're not sort of affecting their relationship with the agency, the client's relationship with the agency when people go away. I think like time off is kind of strange when we're all remote and, super flexible, and it can be weird for sure. But the reality is people need to be away. There's vacations that need to happen. There's breaks that should happen. And the forward thinking here is that nothing changes for the client. You're on top of it. You have the processes in place, and the client, your relationship so well that you are anticipating what's coming. How will they, what are they going to ask on the meeting? What do they always ask? I know clients usually have like a checklist. You know what I mean? They're like, we care about these KPIs, what's happening, what's next, boom. So I think if you have that information, you're thinking about what the client needs, and getting that ahead of time is so important too. So I think that kind of couples with the client relationship, how they're going to react in a meeting or act in a meeting.
Right.
And just to get that from the internal team. So when they're away, business as usual.
It happens on the client side as well. If we get notice that a client is going to be away, it's kind of thinking ahead and being like, okay, what can I provide them with? What can we get done in the next few days before they leave, so that they can actually relax and not have that kind of wheels turning of things that we owe them, or kind of just saying like, hey, I know you're going away and we have this due for you. Even if it's just, we're in progress, we'll have it when you get back. Enjoy your vacation, and just kind of giving them that reassurance that they can actually chill out. It's a big thing too.
That's such a valid point, because entrepreneurs, the people that we're usually dealing with, they have a team, but sometimes they're the person, kind of the go-to person. So even kind of looping them in, sending them an update. I know you're on vacation. Don't respond to this. Enjoy your time. Here's what happened. Because they're checking their emails. We're checking our emails.
Absolutely.
That's how it goes. So just kind of looping them in and knowing that the account's taken care of is so important. So I love that for sort of your best practices, but something that a lot of agencies should be doing, right? Just making sure that those clients are taken care of no matter what the circumstance, and always kind of two sides to the coin, client side and also the internal team. So a huge part of all this, and I feel like it's going to kind of be looped up into this project management bow, but this all comes down to effective project management. And Linnea, I would be lying if I said this is not what agencies care about, because the more agencies I talk to, the more project management is such a real thing. And I think it needs to be done in a strategic way. It's not have a meeting, task it out. It has to be 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead. This is the project. This is what it looks like. This is what's happening every step of the way. So how do you sort of manage that when we're talking about forward thinking and, making sure everybody's sort of looped in? How are you managing project management?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Definitely a big part of the role. And one of my favorite things is, even if it's tasks taken from a call and the team members are on there, I understand that they have other things that they're working on, that they have other priorities. Everything's a priority, right? So it's kind of thinking of, okay, how can I make this the easiest for them when they come back to this task and say, what do I need to tackle? What do I need to do? So I basically create that task with, an overview, the resources they need, if that's a template, if that's meeting notes, if that's comments from the client, anything that can kind of give context to that task, as well as, anything that I could provide, if it's a screen share video, if it's where to find something.
Exactly.
That's kind of how I think of what to do to create the perfect task. And you probably share with this too. If somebody completely outside of the agency or completely foreign to digital marketing can go into that task, read it, follow directions, and get the task done.
Like, I often think, like, flip it onto me. Like, I know where things
Yeah.
are, I know what to do, but if everything's sort of living in that task, the links, the history, the backstory, the kind of purpose, objective, like those things are so important. And I think it comes pretty natural to somebody like an account manager who's playing all
Right.
sides, I guess, client,
Yep.
internal, you're managing the media buyers or whatever it might be. So that's something we as account managers are super in tune to. And I think that, kind of making that outline super easy for anybody who picks up that task, like, so important, because then
yeah.
you're not getting those questions. Where's this? Where's this? Where's this? All in the
Yep.
task. And I also feel like training people to live inside of that project management is such a
Oh my gosh.
important piece to this too. Everything's in ClickUp, everything's in Asana. That's where you
One
will
place.
find the information. Yeah.
Yep. Keep it all in one place. It's the best thing. And one little tiny tip is, if there's no like due date that, has been mentioned, put a due date that is maybe a day or two prior than when you think you actually need it,
Mhm.
so that things can go into review, so that you're giving yourself a little bit of that margin there and can be extra prepared. And
Mhm.
also, people, back to bandwidth and time off and things like that, always think of, if somebody's going to be out, or if someone works another job, what do you need a day or two ahead,
Mhm.
and make sure that you're covered. That's a little trick too that I like to
Yeah.
keep in the CAM
More
mindset.
definitely, like, love a buffer. More and more you'll see kind of international teams. So there's people overseas in Australia, and you kind of
Yep.
have to think 2 days ahead. It's not one day ahead, it's actually two, because they're a day ahead of you, but then you need the buffer, right? So you're thinking like all these sort of days ahead, and that sort of
Yeah.
preparation and how to do that is really important to keep not only the client happy, but the project moving, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have
Oh
to
my gosh.
keep
Yeah.
it, because we don't want the international team to be a bottleneck, right? We want to work with them. We want to
Yeah.
make sure that they have what they need. And, so do we. So such an important piece to the puzzle. I think there's lots of takeaways here, Linnea. We can certainly be that person that's detail oriented, definitely the person that's thinking about the client first, making sure, you're anticipating what they are going to speak to, what their sort of objectives are. But there's also sort of this like overarching forward thinking that happens inside of agencies too, like this sort of larger forward thinking where there's end of the year reporting, there's strategy when you first onboard a client. I think there's also this
Mhm.
really great relationship piece where you can read clients in a way that when you're delivering, a
Yep.
service to them or a communication to them or whatever it might be, you really know them and what their personality is, not maybe how you want to do it, but how they want to receive it. So there's so many
Gosh,
sort of
yes.
larger points here too, but let's dive into reading people and how we can do that, especially when the world's on Zoom, or when, we aren't kind of talking online, we don't see people in person. It can be hard to do for sure.
Yeah. So this one I feel like it's a skill, but it's also something that is very innate to us, is reading body language. I am a firm believer of being able to read someone's body language, their facial expressions, even on video. You can sense it, like someone's tone, whether it's more positive or more negative. And you can sense a shift in energy, one way or another. And I do believe it's a part of our job to kind of recognize these things, because one of the biggest things is, if you're feeling it, it's probably true that other people are feeling it as well. The body does not lie. Tone is a big thing as well. So those are kind of little identifiers that I take. And if I can say something, if I notice something on a meeting, on a call, and I can identify it and I can talk to it and speak to it right away, bring it forward to that person. Say, okay, I feel like there's a bit of, tension, or I hear your concern. We understand it fully. we're going to regroup it internally and figure out some alternative solutions. Just recognizing it brings the relief a little bit back into the room and back to the client. So that's a big thing as well. If it is something that is more of a concern, what I like to do is just bring it back to the team and say, hey, this is what I felt from the client today. How about you? Let's do this. And then I say, let's come up with a few things that I can take back to the client and say, we recognize it. This is what we think. This is where we'd like to go. Here's our suggestions. Let us know how you feel. Happy to discuss further. And just recognizing it. Most clients just want to feel heard. And so do we. So it's mostly, difficult conversations can happen with clients, but it doesn't have to hurt the relationship. And I think just really bringing it to the forefront and being able to just identify any concern or frustration, and just kind of coming up with that solution is a big win.
So if we're talking about forward thinking here, the sort of gain of the client facing person, the person that is kind of in it, you do know both sides of the account, right? You know the internal, you know what they're capable of, you know what they're doing, what their strategy is. Plus, you know the client and sort of reading that energy from them. They aren't as perky as they were last time, but their accounts are also tanking. They didn't make, the sales they did last time. So you can read it on their face. Like there are sort of those cues that, being the client facing person, you can kind of be like, okay, this account has kind of taken a turn. We got to turn it around. Here's what we should do. What do you think, media buying team? And let's action that. And for me, it's always put yourself in their shoes. You would want that. You don't want to say, listen, your campaigns suck and I'm not getting the results I want. You want to be like, hey, we know this was a bad week. We're doing this, this, and this to make it better. So I think to maintain that really positive relationship, you need to think about the next steps. The forward thinking here is, what are we going to do? And let's do it. And then let's bring it to the client in a quick turnaround so they're not coming to us, right? That's always kind of our earlier point there too. So such great takeaways here. I think a lot of the forward thinking inside of an agency can be done on daily communications. Dot & Company loves a daily pulse. Whether that be in Slack or email, whatever that is. Loom videos are huge so they can hear the tone of your voice. You're looking out for that account kind of for the now and for the future, which is great. Regular reporting, regular updates, always great to have. Do you have any other tips, Linnea? How can we be an awesome account manager inside of agencies, just like you?
I would say, to piggyback off of, just reading people, it doesn't always have to be negative either. So when wins do happen and maybe the client is a bit happier or there is a success, call it out and let the client know, like, hey, this is a big win, or hey, this is a small one. We're seeing, metrics increase, which is great. We're seeing more revenue. So calling that out to the team and also to the client just makes that rapport and that relationship even stronger, and it encourages the team to keep doing it and the client to trust you more. So that's a big one too.
That is so important. And I did take a negative turn there. You're right. So that's so great to emphasize the positive. Here at Dot & Company, we're big at gifting too. So any agency should be having celebrations when those wins come. I know I worked with an agency once and they had their first $1 million month. So a quick search on Amazon and we gave them this cute little cozy $1 million bill blanket. It was so cute. And it was just a cheeky little gift that they're like, oh my God, we're in this together. So important. So those wins should definitely be celebrated. Everybody loves a gift, no matter what it is.
Oh yeah.
And even a shout out to the internal team, because they do, those behind the scenes sort of media buyers, tech side of things, copywriters, they're working really hard and they want to celebrate those wins too. So, okay, Linnea, good job. I did forget about all those wins and celebrating them as well, because forward thinking about that, maybe you have 1 month, and you're so close to that $1 million. Next month, we're going to hit it. And this is what I'm going to do. So those sort of tactics around the evolution of accounts or what might be happening positively as well is essential, vital to any great account management. So I think we have talked about some really great things here today, Linnea, lots of tips and tricks. If we can summarize this whole podcast into one sort of line, if that's even possible, but really being on top of the needs of the client and really responding to those in the best account management ways with excellent communication, really great project management, those special touches. I think that's how account management goes from good to great. So much learned here today on this podcast. Linnea, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to dive in more, hopefully soon, about all the tips and tricks of awesome account management. You can find more information linked below, everything from Dot & Company and our services and how we make really great agencies have really awesome account management. We're here for you, so go check it out. Linnea, you are definitely a super, super awesome client account manager. You're in the industry, you know what it's all about. You've been doing this for a minute, so definitely some wise words from Linnea. Any extra thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. Thanks so much for having me. This is the best job ever.
We covered it all. That's great. Go check out more from Dot & Company linked below, and thank you so much, Linnea.
Cheers to happy clients.